It is no secret that the HX Stomp is an incredible unit that is jam-packed with a ton of features. Regardless if you are brand new to the unit or you are a pro with the HX Stomp, I wanted to expose some of the known and lesser known tips and tricks to really unlock the full capabilities of this unit. So with all that said, if you're new here, like and subscribe, and let's dive into tip number 1. First and foremost, if you own the HX Stomp, it is no surprise that Snapshots absolutely unlock the full capabilities of the unit. And in this case, most people don't know that the Snapshots can actually be tied to everything within your signal chain, and I mean everything. So for instance, if you have a preset with a really clean amp and you want to take that and go from clean to overdriven with tons of ambient reverb and delay, you can do that with one single snapshot. And in this case, I think a lot of people know that you can use snapshots to adjust and turn on and off individual effects blocks, but you can also use snapshots to control individual parameters within your amp, EQ settings, or even individual preset blocks as well, or effect blocks. If you want to use a snapshot to adjust the gain staging on an amp, you can roll up the gain, you can pull back the presence, or add bass for each individual snapshot. And one other thing that a lot of people don't know is if you have time-based effects, you can actually go in and change the BPM per snapshot within one preset. If you want to do this, simply toggle into snapshot mode, click into the affected snapshot, and then make your adjustments and hit save. From here, you can also go into your global settings and you can recall previous edits that you have made to that snapshot, or you can also control if it automatically saves when you make an adjustment or not. Lastly, if you press and turn the knob, this will automatically save the adjustment to that snapshot. So now, once you go between snapshots, you'll see that your settings all changed and the individual blocks and the different foot switch options are all saved under that snapshot. All right, let's move on to number 2. Now, this next tip may be cheating because it's not directly stomp related, but I think it's super beneficial and it's worth mentioning. And that is leveraging an external additional foot switch with the HX Stomp. Now, in this case, what I like to do is to use snapshots for different sections of a song. And in this case, if the song has intro, verse, chorus, a solo, using snapshots to trigger different tones for different parts of the song. And having an external foot switch could be really nice because you're no longer limited to just those 3 initial switches within the HX Stomp. And in my personal case, I use the Jet Micro, which is not only an external foot switch, but it is a MIDI controller. So I can use it for things such as a tap tempo, a tuner, a looper, going up and down on different banks, and still being able to use it for different snapshot options. And since I am a Jet affiliate, if you're interested in that, check it out in the description below to get 10% off your order. You also help support the channel, which is super amazing too. Now, of course, you don't have to go this route with the Jet Micro, and there are tons of options out there available for just an external foot switch that's going to give you additional foot switch options and then be controlled by a TS or TRS cable. And in this case, a few examples, which I'll plug right up top. Rockstock off of Amazon has a really great option for 30 bucks. Analog Endeavors or Pedalnetics all have really great options that are going to be less expensive but give you more limited functionality. You can still go in and go up and down on banks and assign it to individual preset blocks. But in this case, if we want to do that, all we have to do is to go into our global settings, and then we have to set up our foot switch for 4 and 5. And then that's going to be globally controlled rather than be controlled by an individual preset like a MIDI controller can be. And in this case, Mission Engineering also has their TT2, which is a really great expansion for the Stomp. Either way, using an external foot switch, regardless of the route you go, really unlocks the HX Stomp to its full capabilities and lets you explore outside of the traditional 3 foot switches on the Stomp. Speaking of 3, let's move on to number 3. Oh, and if you're finding this content helpful, be sure to subscribe. I've got tons more digital modeling content out there with the Helix, the HX Stomp, and the Kemper. I've got more coming down the pipeline. So with that said, subscribe. Let's dive into the next tip. Now, number 3 is something that I translated from my use with the Kemper Profiler, and that is locking a noise gate at the input of your signal chain. In this case, you can actually do this with the HX Stomp without taking up an additional effect block. All you have to do is scroll all the way over to the left where your input section is at, click into that, and then from there, go in and adjust your input settings and set up a noise gate for that patch. Now, if you're not familiar with what a noise gate does or can help with, it helps remove some of those unwanted frequencies at the front of your signal chain. So in this case, if you're not playing your guitar and you've got 60 cycle hum or you've got some ground noise, having a noise gate at the front of your signal chain can help eliminate some of that unwanted noise. And of course, the big benefit here as well is we don't have to take up one of those precious block slots and can use one of those 8 other blocks somewhere else on our signal chain. Now, you may have not known this, but you do have the ability to actually go in and save your favorite effects within the HX Stomp. If you find that you are always using the same reverb, delay, overdrive, compressor option, you can go in and actually save that as a favorite. All you have to do is click on Action, scroll all the way to the right, and you're gonna see a few different options. From here, you'll see the ability to replace or add a new favorite. And then from here, once that favorite is saved, you can also click the action button again to reorder those favorites, delete, or rename something entirely to something else. In my opinion, this can be great for your most used effects, or if you find that there's certain modulation, delay, reverb settings that you use frequently, go in, save those as a favorite, and then that way you can apply it to future presets. Let's move on to number 5. Now, this next tip is very similar to number 4, however, there's a slightly different application. And in this case, it's the ability to go in and save user defaults for individual effects and parameters within the HX Stomp. If you're finding that you like to use an effect frequently within the HX Stomp, but you don't like the factory settings, you can actually go in and adjust those to your own user defaults. So that way, every time you pull up the Minotaur overdrive or every time you pull up an AC30, it's going to have your preferred user default settings saved for that effect or amp. So for practical example, if we go in and look at the Minotaur overdrive, we tweak the effect to my liking, I can then hold down that action button, scroll all the way to the right, click on the user default for this effect. And then that means next time when I add this effect, it will automatically pull up those recalled settings. If you're new to the HX Stomp, you may be thinking that you are locked into the pre-programmed or default Footswitch assignments for your individual effects blocks, snapshots, and presets. And in this case with the HX Stomp, you do have the ability to go in and change which effects are assigned to which foot switches. So you can change foot switch 1 to foot switch 3, foot switch 3. If you want to go in and adjust the tap tempo or the tuner option, you can remove that as well. All you have to do is just go in, hit the page left and right together, and then we can go in and use the bypass assign if we want to manually adjust the route, or if we want to go in and block to a specific foot switch represented by foot switch 1, 2, or 3. If you have an external foot switch like the micro, in this case, I have 3 additional foot switches, but I can simply go into the controller assign section, click learn, and then the Stomp will actually wait for my input, and then I get to choose the desired button I want to map it to. And this also works for external foot switch options like the options I mentioned before. Similarly, if you want to go in and entirely move away from having foot switch number 3 assigned to the tap tempo and the tuner, we can go into global settings, click into the global settings, move over into the foot switch section, go in where it says FS3, and you can toggle this around to be whatever you like. If we want to move it away from being a tap tempo tuner, then you can do that here. Now, once you've done that, be sure to go back, follow those previous steps, and assign an effect or a block to that foot switch. All right, number 7. A lot of people enjoy having an EQ block inside of their signal chain, but you do also have the ability to go in and either set up a global EQ or an EQ for each specific preset. I know a lot of people really enjoy having an EQ for each individual preset within the HX Stomp, but you do also have the ability to go in and set up a global EQ across the entirety of all of your presets. Now you may be asking, why would I want to do that? And I think the benefit lies within having more uniformity between all of your different presets, or if you like the way certain frequencies respond with certain guitars, you can adjust that globally. If you want to do this, it is super easy. Just hit both the left and the right buttons for page at the same time to bring you into the global settings. Scroll to the right and click on global EQ. From here, I typically recommend cutting everything between 80 to 100 hertz if you're playing guitar, and then cutting everything above 6,000 to 8,000 kilohertz. And given that the HX Stomp is a modeler, typically removing some of those additional frequencies helps it respond and feel more like a real guitar playing through a real cabinet, given we are removing some of those sounds and frequencies within that high fidelity range. I know that was a ton of information. Comment below, let me know some super helpful tips that you have found using your HX Stomp, and I'll create a round 2 of this video. If you're still on the fence about purchasing the HX Stomp, check out this video right here on why you should still buy the Stomp in 2023. I'll see you next time.